Hey, mini bike friends, Dan Pazowski from allaboutminibikes.com, and I want to talk to you about the evolution of mini bike design, where it came from and where it's going to and where it's at right now also. The evolution of the mini bike design, we're going to talk about these small machines that really changed over the years, from the early years with really simple beginnings, and then they got modern, and I don't have the most modern here, but they turned into high performance models, you know that. And the innovations and the design trends have just changed so much over the years. So we want to go back to the beginning. Just like, did you ever wonder? I mean, seriously, about there was a simple design. They were just backyard toys that transformed now into these high-powered machines, which everything evolves like that. So I want to talk about this and go from them little beginnings into the talk about the cutting-edge stuff of today. And I'll start right off with my 1974 Penny Golden Pinto. Now I have a 1969 Sears Runabout, which is my oldest, which has no shocks on it, but right now that and my Ramjet, Minico Ramjet, as well as my #1 XR Rocket at the Crawford Museum in Cleveland, Ohio. They're running a motorcycle, history of motorcycles, and they wanted to put mini bikes in there too, so they asked if they could use a couple of my oldest, as well as my #1 XR Rocket retro mini bike. I said yes, so it's there right now. So I use the Pinto since 1974. The braking system on here is a scrub brake. That means you push it down with your foot, and this would scrub or skid this plate up against the tire. Harder you push, that's the harder the braking. If it got a little wet, you had to really push. In this bike, in the older bikes, there was no front suspension on the forks. This here is a little advanced, I'll say, because it has rear shocks, kind of. But again, they were what they used at the time, was inexpensive. You can see it mounted on a bracket to the seat and then to the frame. So there's no swing arms. So you're thinking, how does it do anything? Well, right up under there, that bolt and nut that hold the front of the seat on, that pivots in there. That's your swing arm. It can move up and down. So as this is bumping up and down, it's actually pivoting there, and that would be your swing arm. These bikes also came with usually a Tecumseh or a Briggs & Stratton motor on it, anywhere from 2.5 to 4 horsepower. The oldest mini bikes from the very early 60s usually had a Clinton 2-stroke motor, which I don't have one here right now, but I would show you that. But then they were really finicky and picky, and with companies like Tecumseh and Briggs & Stratton, who had so many motors, they would just buy them and have them, they'd put them on like that. That was the basic of the earliest mini bikes, usually no shocks front or back. I will talk about that a little bit more. This bike right here I got for the kids for Christmas somewhere in maybe, I don't know, I want to say 2012 or so. The Motovox, I believe, was being put together in Texas at the time. 2.5 horsepower motor. There were no shocks on it, front or back. It was just a rigid frame. It was very solid, though, I'll admit that. Very solid. Just the motor was very weak. It had at least your on and off switch up here. Everything was very well made, and it actually had the advanced disc brake on here. The problem was the motors were weak, and the bigger problem with that is that when people would have a problem with it, they'd take it back to Sears, and Sears would then send it back to the company. You're supposed to call the company. No one would do that. Sears didn't want to lose customers, so they would just take them back, send them back, and eventually Motovox went out of business and morphed into something else. Kids learned how to ride on this. Very weak motor. Nowadays, if people have these or something like it, they rip that motor off. They go to Harbor Freight and put a 212 or larger motor on it. But it is a sturdy built one. If I jump up ahead, thinking this here is 1974, right? Well, by 1974, Yamaha came out with their YZ80. This is a YZ80A, the first year for it. In 1973, Honda came out with the XR75. This totally changed it. If you went into the early 70s, had Mini Bike Guide magazine, you would only see mini bikes racing, maybe a Honda Z50 in there. All through, well, they always showed the tracks out in California, Saddleback, and the rest of them. But all of a sudden, by the time 1974 came around, forget it. The mini bikes of this nature were just backyard things, and they were taken over by Honda, Yamaha. Suzuki came out with the TM75, Yamaha the YZ80. and of course the Honda. But I have this one because I knew nothing about this. I picked up a Mini-Cycle magazine, I remember, in 1974, and they had these kids that were my age racing these things, and I just went nuts over it. And of course, parked my mini bike once I had enough money to buy a dirt bike. This here model was the first year that it went, and it becomes so popular because it had the 2-stroke motor, and Honda had the 4-stroke, and Yamaha kept improving theirs, and then before you knew it, everything out there on the racetrack was a Yamaha YZ80. And that's changed and evolved. Right here now is our homemade retro mini bike. They're jig welded and everything. I took the design actually I bought the rights to these. These used to sell in Popular Mechanics and Boys Life for over 40 years, from basically around 1960 or so to the early 2000s when I bought the rights to that. And what I did was I took and I duplicated, but I improved. So in the old days, if I had my Sears runabout here right now, you would see that the forks did not bend forward, because that gives you good knee room. They went straight up and back, and it just left no room for a bigger person. We do have the tires that were pneumatic, but they weren't big and soft like this. So this does give you shock in there. Back then, the foot pegs did not fold. These have folding foot pegs. And the difference here also, we put a drum brake in there, which was just better than the setup that they used to have. This one here has a 98cc motor on it. We use either a 79cc or a 98cc. They make this bike scoot. You have fun with it. We've also added the kill switch on there for safety reasons. So basically, we do the retro that actually goes back to what it would have looked like back in 1969, 68, 67, so on and so forth, to the early 70s. That would be like something you would get from J.C. Penney or the Sears catalog. So it's come a long way, and it hasn't stopped. Now, at 66, I don't care to go 100 miles an hour, and I know a lot of people that don't. They just want to get on a nice, comfortable bike, start it up, and go cruise. And that's what we do through the neighborhood or parking lots or wherever we can go. So that's the basic rough history of it. And if you have any questions or comments, hey, leave them. I know I left out a lot. I'll do some more later when I get my other bikes back so I can explain more. That's basically the evolution of it, though. And although I don't have a modern bike, you can see them out there. Some of them are going to do 100 miles an hour on drag racing and every other thing. And that's how life is. People always keep improving. But some of us just like to stay simple, comfortable, and vintage. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can ask. And just put a comment in below or send me an email. And also be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have the paid version of subscribers, but they're going to get a lot more. And I also give discounts on our parts that we have on allaboutminibikes.com, and that keeps growing, as well as our mini bikes. So thanks for watching. Please share. If you have comments, just put them in there. Give us a thumbs up if you can, and share with your friends. Thanks for watching, everybody, and get into those vintage mini bikes, okay? Take care.